Everyone makes mistakes, right? Well, when you're part of the design team for a flying prototype or for a new innovative bridge, mistakes are definitely bound to happen. Unfortunately, it's times like these when mistakes can land you in especially hot water. Design flaws in car, airplane, bridge, or architectural prototypes can have a very costly consequence for the companies that produce them, and for the people testing them. From flawed structural designs to downright strange aesthetics, design failures can result in someone, or maybe even a whole team, getting canned. Incidentally, many of the design failures we're about to show you look like they came straight out of a can. We're kidding, but you'll see what we mean. Join us as we open this can of worms and take a look at some of the biggest design failures humankind has ever conceived. The idea for the McDonnell XF-85, also known as the Little Goblin, was that it would be used by Americans as a parasite bomber. In other words, the Little Goblin would be attached to a larger bomber plane and would be deployed in combat to protect the bomber if the enemy sent an interceptor plane to destroy it. This idea was inspired by the resistance American bombers encountered in World War II. Sounds like a good idea, right? However, problems arose when McDonnell tested the Little Goblin and realized how incredibly difficult it was to successfully reattach the parasite fighter to the larger bomber that it was meant to protect. What's more, the Little Goblin was not equipped with any of its own landing gear, which proved very problematic for test pilot Ed Scotch, who was forced to make a miraculous belly landing on a dry lake bed in 1948. Although the plane flew well and was a very intriguing prototype, the McDonnell Company only managed 3 successful reattachments out of 7 test flights that they ran, and was ultimately forced to scrap the project for good in 1949. Scrapped projects abound, and this one takes us behind the Iron Curtain of all places. Although this one had a lot more success than the Little Goblin before they pulled the plug. Built in East Germany from 1957 to 1990, the Trabant was actually the most popular car in East Germany before the collapse of the Iron Curtain. Think of the communist version of the Volkswagen Beetle. The fact that no cars could make it into East Germany is a big reason why the Trabant lasted as long as it did, with a top speed of only 62 miles an hour, and a minimalist interior that offered no air conditioning, no blinker signals, and somehow no fuel gauge. It's no wonder that the Trabant has been the butt of many a joke. Its exterior was also made of Duraplast instead of steel, because the durable plastic was easier to manufacture in East Germany. People not so affectionately refer to this forgettable design as the spark plug with a roof, and the cardboard racer. By the looks of things, those sound very appropriate. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please be sure to click the like button and leave us a comment. Your engagement is what keeps our team designing these fresh videos. Alright, let's get back to business. Speaking of nicknames and ridicule, the guy driving this truck certainly deserves both. In Candler County, Georgia, an antsy driver got himself into quite the hilarious construction mishap. This truck driver, whose name will be spared lest he be roasted to a crisp in the comments, decided that the traffic on the I-16 was simply for the chumps and the squares who followed the rules. Maybe he was running late on his Amazon same-day shipping. Anyhow, he decided to get into the other lane, which was cordoned off for construction, only to get his 16-wheeler stuck in wet concrete. Ouch. We don't know what's more hilarious, the fact that this guy had to explain his way out of that decision, or the fact that the county sheriff's office confirmed that this wasn't the first time that this happened. This next design was a first and last attempt at creating a flat, pancake-shaped plane. You may be wondering how the Vought V173, as it was formerly known, could have possibly benefited from its strange, flat design. Well, the fact of the matter is that the pancake-like shape of the plane and its 2 large propellers which forced the plane to rest at a 22-degree angle would theoretically enable the aircraft to take off and land vertically. What's more, the takeoff and landing could be done at low speeds, while maintaining control of the plane even in a strong wind. This feature of the Vought 173 was perfect for the U.S. Navy, who commissioned its design in 1939, as it sought an aircraft capable of easily landing on and taking off from its fleet of carriers. Unfortunately, the Vought 173 Flying Pancake was designed just before the arrival of the jet engine. The jet engine, which made all the planes that came before it look unbearably slow, ultimately killed the Flying Pancake project before it could ever even get airborne. Like the Flying Pancake, this next car never managed to get airborne, although it did somehow manage to stay on production lines for 4 years. We are looking at one of the strangest designs ever brought to fruition, the Pontiac Aztec. The car's name, Aztec, evokes something esoteric, ancient, and difficult to understand, and that last part at least is mirrored in the car's design. Following one of GM's biggest build-ups to a reveal, the Aztec delivered on GM's promise to deliver a unique vehicle, but maybe not in the way they intended. During its first appearance at the Detroit Auto Show, crowds were less than impressed with the Aztec's boxy minivan look and unsightly plastic trim. The few years that the car was able to stay in production were a grind, as they were plagued by recalls and completely missed sales forecasts. In recent years, the car has received a little boost in collectors' circles, as it was driven by Bryan Cranston's character Walter White in the hit show Breaking Bad. However, not even a Hollywood endorsement could bring this terrible idea back from the dead. This next plane never actually made it to the graveyard, although with its strange design, we think maybe it should have. It's the Airbus Beluga, named after its resemblance to the famed Arctic whale. This giant cargo plane, or supertransporter, was officially approved for service by the European Aviation Safety Agency in 1995. Manufactured by Airbus, the Beluga possesses one of the most spacious cargo holds of all aircraft flying today, which makes it ideal for transporting oversized air cargo. The company currently has 5 Belugas in service and hopes to replace them with their new Beluga XL design as soon as 2020. The Beluga can carry 103,000 pounds of cargo per trip and can fly as high as 35,000 feet. Its 147-foot wingspan and beluga-resembling frame make it look like a beluga jumping out of the water and through the clouds. If belugas could actually jump out of the water and into the clouds, that is. It may be called the Bond Bug, but the only thing this next car has in common with 007 is the fact that they were both made in England. In fact, we doubt James would get within 100 yards of anything with this little sex appeal. This two-seater, three-wheeled car was made in the 1970s, when Reliant bought the Bond Motor Company with the idea of using the brand to launch a fun new concept vehicle. We don't know about you, but this is not our idea of fun. Composed of a bright orange fiberglass shell and powered by a 700cc Reliant engine, the Bond Bug was aimed at younger motorists looking to turn some heads. And we're sure many heads were turned. But aside from getting second looks, the Bond Bug's strange design was also a catalyst for a whole host of problems, primarily in the steering department. That's to be expected of a three-wheeled car, we guess. Despite its small stature, the Bond Bug managed a reasonable top speed of 76 miles per hour, which, at least, was higher than the British speed limit of 70 at the time. Terrible design isn't something unique to cars and planes either. In Kansas City, Missouri, the 40-story Hyatt Regency Hotel opened up in 1980. Due to its unique design, the hotel quickly became famous for its innovative atrium, which featured 3 massive hanging walkways. Because they seemed to be floating through the clouds, the hotel called them skywalks, and the name stuck. These 3 giant concrete slabs were supported by long rods hanging from the ceilings, instead of the traditional, more reliable, grounded pillars. The Hyatt's gorgeous atrium made it a popular spot for parties, and it was at one of these very parties on July 17, 1981, that the skywalks suddenly collapsed. Talk about dampening the mood. In all seriousness, an investigation of the incident discovered several irresponsible shortcuts were taken in the assembly of the rods, and the strength of the materials used to construct them was not quite up to snuff. Thankfully, the engineers at Jack D. Gilliam and Associates, who were behind the design, lost their engineering license as a result of their negligence. Fortunately, this next plane's strange design is only a failure in the aesthetics department. The Boeing 707-344C, also known as the Falcon, first flew in 1958. Of the 580 built, 40 are still in service. A few of them are actually used by the Chilean and Israeli militaries, though the Falcons can transport up to 189 passengers with a 3-person crew. These planes were repurposed as reconnaissance and surveillance planes when they were adopted for military use. You're probably wondering why the plane has that ridiculous black clown nose on the front? Well, that's actually part of the Falcon's sophisticated radar system, which has 5 other components working in tandem with the enlarged nose cone to pick up on surface targets and airborne vehicles. Though hideous, the clown nose is actually a tactical boon to the Israelis and the Chileans. At least it doesn't look so funny for no reason. This last car is the absolute mother of all design failures, the Ford Pinto. Over time, the word Pinto has become synonymous with bland looks. But that was far from the Pinto's only design flaw. In 1978, Ford was forced to recall over 1.5 million Pintos due to a design flaw that caused the back gas tank to explode in minor rear collisions. Yikes. This blunder dealt a heavy blow to Ford's reputation as the company succumbed to 117 lawsuits over the Pinto. What's worse, these lawsuits coincided with the rise of foreign competitors like Honda and Volkswagen. Luckily, as we know, Ford has been able to bounce back from that fiasco. But that doesn't mean that car collectors and amateurs alike are ever going to forget about the Pinto's bland looks and its fiery design flaws. Well, that's all for today. Which one of these horrendous designs was the absolute worst?